Hello everyone, welcome back to Brian's Tech Tips. Today I'm going to show you how to remove and repack your wheel bearings on a 71 to 73 Cougar or 71 to 73 Mustang. I think it's about the same on every old Ford, but I could be wrong. This will also serve as a guide to replace your wheel bearings if you have to. Pretty much the exact same process. So let's get started. Enough chitter chatter. First thing I have to do is remove the brake caliper. Sorry, couldn't think. There's two bolts. If you have stock brakes, they will be different than this, but still two bolts. Once you have those two bolts off, the caliper should just slide right off. And apparently I need to pick up those washers. That's okay. Now make sure when you take off the brake caliper, it's not just hanging from the brake line. It can damage it. You don't want to do that. So I just got mine set back there. And now we move on to removing the disc. Let me get you a better view. Alright, the first thing we got to do is get this cover off. Pry tool should work fine. Alright, once you have the cover off, you'll be greeted by this locking hardware. And you can bend this straight if you want to. I'm just going to cut them off. Alright, once you have the lock pin removed, you just have to remove... Why is this stuck? This holds the nut. So the locking pin slides in there, and then it makes sure that this nut doesn't come off. To remove that nut, you'll just need a 1 1/8. And it should come off very, very easily. So don't be worried if it comes off easily for such a large nut. That's how it should be. All right. Make sure not to touch the rotor with greasy fingers. You don't want grease and brakes mixed together. So, tubbo towel, wash your crap off. This should just slide off. And then you have the first bearing. And then on the back side, oh, I got grease on it. Have to clean that off. You'll have your other bearing. All right, let's take this to the bench. All right, we're back at the bench. And now we have to get this seal out. So this might be a little bit of a fight, but I have a seal puller here, and I'm going to give it my best go. You can see you have to pull this seal to get this other bearing out. I guess it wasn't that big of a fight after all. And you'll have to buy 2 new of these. You can get them at O'Reilly's for $5. So if you're just watching this before you do it, make sure to order them. And if you need new bearings, you can order those too. Here's the bearings. You can see they were red grease and they're black now. So I'm going to wipe these up, try to get them cleaned off, and then we're going to repack them, and I'll show you how to do that too. All right, the next phase is after you get the seal out. This bearing is in there. Get it out, and then you're going to repack the bearing. And if you're replacing the bearings, you're still going to do this because they're going to have no grease on them. So this was $30 on Amazon if you want one. It's the Kraken. I'll put a link in the description. You just put the bearing in there this way. See how it's one size bigger, one end is bigger than the other. You put the smaller end down. And then you just spin this down. See how the triangle, it pretty much goes the same way as the bearing. And then you can see the grease is coming out, which is all the old grease, getting filled with all the new grease. Super easy. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you how to do it with your hand, which is fairly easy. It's just really messy. I'll take the grease off my lid. And I'll do it on the smaller bearing. You have to do the exact same thing that you did with the big bearing, is pack it too. What you do is you push the grease in. And it will take longer, but you can see how it's coming out of the crevices right there. You just kind of push it in, and then you can see it all coming out. And you want it to be that same way all the way around. And that's how you do it with your hand. You just push it in, push it in. Make sure you pack both bearings. It'll take longer than the bearing packer, but it does work. So I did it the first time with these bearings. All right, let's get it back together. So we're going to take our large bearing out of the bearing packer. Slide it right in there. And the next thing we're going to do is put on the seal. Sorry if there's a lot of noise in this video. The garage door is open and it's really hot outside. And the neighbors, of course, are always doing something. Now, there's a couple ways to install the seal. You can use the special tool, or you can just use a hammer. Now, I'm just going to use the hammer. I have the tool, but most people have a hammer, right? Might take a couple tries. Now, the seal should be all the way down. When you hear that tinking noise, it means it is good to go. Next thing we're going to do is go back to the car. We're going to clean off this spindle. I don't know if you can see that, but right there, it's kind of a rough patch. I'm going to use a little brake clean. And then see some like rusty looking stuff. That's not going to come off with brake clean. So I'm going to use a rotary tool with basically a Scotch-Brite pad on it. So this is the tool I'm going to be using. Basically it's just a rotary tool with the Scotch-Brite pad on it. And then I have it set at 3, which is pretty slow. Alright, I'm sure you don't want to watch me do that for the whole video, but as you can see, it's cleaning up. I'm going to finish that up and we'll go on to the next step. So I did forget to tell you guys something. Try to clean out all of the old grease inside of the rotor, and definitely make sure you use a little bit of brake clean and clean off the rotor. It's almost a guarantee that you're going to get grease on it, and you don't want grease on your brakes. Alright, we have that bearing in, and we're about ready to install it on the car, so let's go do that. So we're back at the car. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the spindle. Help the bearings. And then let's get ready to put the rotor on. Alright, the next step is basically just putting the rotor back on. And you have your other bearings. Remember, just because I only did one bearing doesn't mean you have to pack this bearing. I didn't want to waste time showing you guys it twice. It's the exact same process. So pack both bearings. The next thing you put on is the washer. And then there's a groove right there. So the washer can only go on one way. Then you put on the nut. And the next step, you'll need a torque wrench. So you'll want to set your torque wrench at 20 foot-pounds. Again, 20 foot-pounds. First I should get that all the way on here so it's not a pain in the butt. God, I hate all this grease. And you'll want to spin the rotor while you tighten it down. This helps the bearing seat. Alright, it's torqued to 20 foot-pounds. The next step is to loosen this. Loosen the nut half a turn. And then the next step, after you loosen this nut half a turn, you're going to use your very, very small inch-pound torque wrench, and you're going to set it to 15 inch-pounds. So I had to use 2 adapters. Remember, not 15 foot-pounds, 15 inch-pounds. And you can't hear it click, but it is clicking. and there's no play, spins freely. And then we put back on the lock washer and cotter pin. So then you just put on this lock ring, and you might have to spin it a couple times. But I got lucky and actually got it the first time. That never happens. Remember, don't mess with the nut. If it doesn't line up, just spin this. And take it off, spin it, take it off, spin it until it lines up with the hole. Then you put on your cotter pin. And then you bend the cotter pin. Okay, let me get you a close-up so you can see how everything looks. So you can see how I bent the tabs this way and one tab this way. Everything's on there. And you're good to go. Then all you have to do is put your cap back on. If you don't want to damage it, you can just use a mallet. And your job is done, except for putting on the brake caliper. I don't think I'm going to show you that because my brake calipers are probably different than yours. Install the 2 bolts. Slide it back on. But do remember to clean off your rotor of grease. Make sure there's 0 grease on it. Remember, clean them off. You want to clean off the back side too. Remember, if you like these videos, like and subscribe. Again, this was wheel bearing for 71 through 73 Mustang or Cougar. If you like these videos, I got nothing but time. Have a great rest of your night.